being assigned to you, an identity in which you haven't taken part. Now, you will be sent to an organization called educational system. It differs a little from country to country, considering the culture, but more than that, country's budget, so I will refer to the educational system from the country where I was born. The differences are almost less important, considering the similarities.
On the contrary, there's a very good word. Am I right, Bert?
Tell 'em what it is.
Kindergarten lasted about 3 or 4 years, but varies. In kindergarten I learned many stories, tales, things related to the imagination. Why? I do not know. Nobody told me, neither until today.
Well, you must understand that today we expose children to artificial values first. Moo moo, said the cow. Ba ba, said the sheep. When you bring up children with that kind of garbage, they can learn geology, children can learn engineering, mathematics. Children are capable of learning the same thing adults are. It takes just as much garbage that you fill the kids' heads with, and you keep pumping information into their head that's unreal, and then you expect them to be able to think later on. Children can learn to read at a very early age. They can understand complex things like continental drift. They can understand volcanoes, nature. They can understand the symbiotic process. But you have things like a Mickey Mouse Club. Imagine that. Imagine all the ridiculous things that children are exposed to. So here we damage them right away because we think, well, I guess that's the way children are. No, they are not. I can like to say this about my own little boy. When he was about 4 years old, he said, Daddy, the wheel came off my toy car. Will you fix it? So I said, so it did. I'll get you baby toys where the wheels don't come off. And I threw the car in the garbage. Well, I watched him, and I noticed that lower lip come out. And he said, you throwed it away. So I said, yes, I did. So he said, well, maybe I can fix it. And I took it out and I gave it to him. And he tried to put it together, and he did put it together within a few minutes. Then I picked him up and said, that's wonderful. How did you do that? He said, I'm not that little. In other words, if you give kids responsibility, instead let Daddy solve this, let Daddy do that for you, let Mommy fix that, you produce a blob that doesn't think.
School. I was often forced to wear the same outfit as the others, outfit imposed by the educational system. No explanation what for. The school program is fixed. So, you are bound to respect it, otherwise, it is likely to expel you, resulting in a potential lack of job, leading you to starvation, being unable to take possession of money. Speaking of program, he was very early in the morning, and I was being forced to wake up around 7 a.m. This meant that bedtime was not dictated by the biological system, but by the educational system, leading to constant brain and other organs fatigue. Many times, I came to school very sleepy, and the school wants to be an institution in which you must retain information. Classes were fixed, as so as the breaks. The program was about 6-7 hours a day, 5 days a week, all educational program lasting about 12 years, 134 months, and the break like 2-3 months in a year. The educational system has created the first scale of values and labeled people as being stupid or smart for some unknown rules, creating envy.
If you're born with a better brain than him, say the tissue is better quality, the neural processes are better built, if you live in Nazi Germany, you become a Nazi faster. even if your brain is better. The brain has no mechanism for knowing that which is relevant or less relevant. And that goes for intelligence. I don't know if I've talked to you about an electrical engineer of 75 years ago, an intelligent one, couldn't get a job today. So when you talk of intelligence, what are you talking about? It's an ongoing process. It isn't, that's why there's no such thing as an intelligent person. That if people are fairly well informed in area A and B, not informed in area C.
Also, school promoted competition that leads instinctively to dispute. And do not forget that the competition here may have winners and losers. Mostly, the school in which I, along with millions of children, have taken part, created a scale of values and promoted competition. Also, it destroyed something very important, the curiosity, since nobody gave you any explanation for the way you were bounded to behave there, just telling you to do things without asking.
You say you're worried about kids. I'm not worried about kids, I'm worried about grown-ups, okay? These are the ones who vote. These are the ones who tell you, the world is coming to an end in 2012. Kids don't say that, grown-ups do. I'm worried about grown-ups who say, read my horoscope, tell me where I'll find money tomorrow. Grown-ups say this, not children, okay? Children do not read horoscopes, okay? Children are perfectly happy counting through the number 13. Children are not afraid to walk under ladders. They see a black cat cross their path, they say, oh, look, kitty, kitty, they want to pet it and not run in the other direction. Children are not the problem here. Get me started. Plus, kids are born curious. They're always exploring. We spend the first year of their lives teaching them how to walk and talk, and the rest of their lives telling them to shut up and sit down.
To see what it is all about, and to summarize what I have learned in school, let's recap. I remember that I learned a language. This language that you are seeing right now. Let's focus a little bit on that.
You don't understand me. We don't know. A lot of people think that somebody invented language. And they say the reason they invented language is to communicate. That's not true. What happened, a guy banged his elbow. He went, ah, then he banged his knee, went, then he ate something with feet, and language is an extrapolation of all those sounds over many years. Nobody's ever sat down and invented language.
The language in this form is centuries old, and, although it represented the point of support in the development of mankind, is now outdated. Often slow, sometimes too long for the sent message, but especially its interpretable way, makes it useless. We know that mathematics, chemistry and physics are not subject to interpretation. Fixed languages. Well, the language that you are listening right now is interpretable. I can tell you now that you and your boss are the same. But what I actually said? You were the same, but how? You look the same, behave one as another, or what? Depends on what do you understand, because this is interpretable. But what if I would scientifically prove to you that both of you are composed of the same chemical elements? Then, no one would have no doubt on what my message says. Consider now the people who build all kinds of buildings. They are constructing using all those fixed languages, so that all understand, and the building could fit in the environment. No opinion here. So, in those 12, or for me even 15 years, of school, I learned a more exceeded language that is more confusing for the current world. Moreover, I have learned the language of hundreds of the same type, which does not helping me when I leave the country. I learned an interpretable language that helps me communicate with a few tens of millions of people on the planet, that from 7 billion. That in an era of internet, a place without fictitious boundaries. Why I haven't learned an universal language, one more compact and less interpretable. Or why I didn't learn the other fixed languages better than this interpretable one. I have possible theories, but it doesn't matter, matters only to ask yourself. Besides this language, I have learned mathematics, and even after I finished school, I thought that mathematics is a bunch of letters and numbers, with certain rules, and that everything is a game for brain development. My colleagues thought the same thing, or maybe some of them do not even ask. I concluded to this theory because nobody, ever, could give me a more detailed explanation, other than, you need to know to calculate. Calculate money? Or what? I'm wondering if my old colleagues know, until today, what mathematics really means. The same happened with physics and chemistry. Blackboard, white chalk, and a professor with a fixed character, together with fixed and obligatory school schedule, pushed me away from reality, and all those fixed languages have become nonsense bonds. That's why many students hide such classes. They are not explained to the real value. To remember that, no such fixed language could help me in daily life of the monetary system, because the basic language used here is the one that you are witnessing right now, a language old and subject to interpretation. I also learned geography and history. History never interested me because I did not know if indeed such things happened. They were just writing for me, and the present is much more important anyway. Besides, I didn't reconcile with stories where armed criminals were seen as leading heroes. Geography teach me names that she said were countries. That means some portions of planet Earth were conquered by people, just as monkeys do, and named after. This is the concept of countries, that is how the countries evolved. Even today, those things that separates areas exist, and are dividing the human species, leading to racism and instinctively slowing progression due to separation. Countries, cities, have no importance, because the earth itself is of anyone. You can define a piece of earth, name it, and saying it is yours, only by imagination, and will be recognized by others in its value only if others accept that as being true. Also, through imagination. That's what I retained from geography, names and imaginary demarcation. I learned about God and religion on a theory that says that the world was created by a divine creature within 7 days. Basically, the theory was promoted and accepted by all, especially as it was taught in school as being true. It is in contradiction with other subjects learned in school, such as physics, chemistry or biology, even with reason, and for me, it just created confusion. The school has focused very little on sport, music or drawing, so I cannot remember anything to be learned from these areas. The more I got closer to the end of these 12 years, the less rationality in what I learned. What we learn in school do not have any tangent with reality, but just with the possible college. In the monetary system, college is the final step of this human education, and college will prepare you for a job. That leads the educational system into a system of training workers.